My name is David Abramowitz. I am the regional technical lead for Trend Micro for our federal region, although the federal is not really considered a region. We're all across the country for Trend Micro. I've been here for 20 plus years. Big drink of the Kool-Aid. I'm based out of Maryland for those that are just joining now and didn't hear our little chit chat before. So it's 10 o'clock, just a little past 10 o'clock Eastern time. And most of us that work in the sales organization, in some respects, technical or otherwise, work out of our homes. So this is sort of normal to me in COVID times, but do miss all the socialization and such. So anyway, I am also involved in the Trend Micro Internet Safety for Kids and Families program. This is a volunteer program here at Trend Micro. It began in 2012, and I've been involved since, and it's great. Love to talk to kids, love to talk to parents. We're going to hopefully make this as interactive as possible. I'm going to put the link again, since a bunch of people joined right before we started. There's a link in the chat for registration and sign up. Please stick around at the end. When you exit the Zoom, it will automatically go to, actually, just let me go to the next slide. I think that will explain everything. Before we begin, well, we already did. Okay, sign in. There's the link again, but I put it in the chat. Any questions you have, please interrupt me anytime. I've got one eyeball over here on the Q&A window, and I will answer all your questions as quickly as I can. I want this, even though it's a webinar style and I can't see you at the moment, please plop in the questions as they come up and I will address them. I want this to hopefully be interactive in that respect, at least. And at the end, maybe I'll open it up if there aren't too many windows so we can all see each other, hang out, ask questions and such. And what I said before, hang out at the end, because when you actually exit the Zoom, it'll take you to a survey for this presentation. Please give all your comments and feedback. And at that time, you're also entered into a drawing for our Trend Micro Internet Security, which is our security software for your home and mobile devices, desktop, laptop, and such. It's a one-year license for up to 5 devices, I think, so pretty nice. So make sure you filled out the survey. So we're going to have a poll to open things up. And our first question is going to be this: how old is your oldest child? 5 years old or younger, 6 to 10, C is 11 to 14, and D is 15 or older. So I'm going to launch that poll right now. You should be seeing it on your screen. And there are a good number of you, and ooh, boom, 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 all answering. Ooh, I love it. An interactive crowd already. Almost everyone has answered. We're at 82%. Okay, keep it going, keep it going. Hi, Kanoa, M's father. See you popped up there. All right, it looks like we're just about there. Oh, wow, okay. All right, looks like we've got critical mass. I'm going to end it there and share the results. So it looks like we're at 15 and older predominantly, and pretty far second place, 11 to 14. So not too many youngsters, parents of youngsters tonight. That's okay. That's good. And so you're going to have different concerns as well. All right, popping that off. And then another poll question: what are you most interested in hearing about, learning about, talking about tonight? Is it A, managing screen time for your kids? B, helping your kids stick to age-appropriate content? C, dealing with online bullying or hate? Or D, ideas for positive use of the internet? Oh, wait, there's an E. There's also an E. I only got one E in college. It was a terrible time. Discrete mathematics. Never take that class. Okay. E is not sure, just here to learn something new and to hang out with David. All right, launching the poll. Go ahead and vote. What are you most interested in tonight? Do, 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 do. It's like watching the meters go up and down like a little horse race. Here you go. Pretty even. Looks like, online bullying or hate taking the lead early. Okay, looks like we're just about there. Couple last minute votes. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Looks like we got critical mass. Is there an F, all the above? Yeah. We should we should have had that too. I think next time we'll add an F for all the above. I actually sometimes I think I made this poll. Was it I think it was a single choice. I was hoping I was sort of planning on making it multiple choice, but then I looked at the question again and said, "What are you most interested in?" So if you had to pick one, and that's why I left it as a single choice. Okay, so here's what we've got. It's very close, very even-ish across the board here. Dealing with online bullying or hate, edged out, helping my kids stick to age-appropriate content just by a little bit, but really good representation all across the board. So it looks like everyone might have sort of been thinking on the F, all the above. But for sure, we'll talk about online bullying or hate. It's horrible what the kids are going through and how they've been forced to socialize, especially during the pandemic, even more so online and what I call anti-social media. I don't think it's social at all. But the opinions of David Abramowitz do not represent Trend Micro. Okay. So that's our polls. We're going to have another one later, but I wanted to get a pretty decent idea of where you would like to head tonight. And I'll try to make it as custom as I can. Checking the Q&A, nothing yet. Good. All right, off we go. So for sure, a lot has changed in the past 18 months. I hope things in Maui are goodish as far as COVID goes. It's been a roller coaster pretty much in a lot of places, but things are starting to open up again, which is good. But even though a lot has changed in the past year and a half, a lot has stayed the same. Some things have not changed. Number one, our kids still need our guidance on how to use technology in ways that are safe, but also healthy and positive, right? It's not all about the no, don't do that. No, you can't use that. But here's the good stuff as well. The risks to them still exist, risks to their privacy, information security, ours too, personal safety, overuse, inappropriate content, like we saw in the poll, bullying like you guys voted for, and anxiety too. My God, how many of our kids are going through some tremendous amounts of anxiety? And as we're learning, technology is also bringing incredible benefits too, right? So in the pandemic, it sort of keeps us home and safe in one respect, but it also allows us to connect to others, to learn and to do so many other things that we may not have had time to do because so much of the time, especially for the kids, is spent in school and not at home on the devices. And there's a lot more of that now. So teaching our kids what good digital citizenship, as we call it, is more important than ever. So what is digital citizenship? Well, number one, it's safety and security. In the same way in real life, you wouldn't want to go to certain places because they're dangerous or talk to certain people because they're not friendly. And the same sorts of things exist on the internet, of course. And sometimes they're a lot more hidden because we can't see them. So we don't know if someone chatting with our child is actually 15 or 55, for instance. Digital literacy, very important to be able to navigate, for our kids to be able to navigate and make the best use of the internet, as opposed to spending all their time on Insta. Ethics and community, very important. Just like in the real world, we want to bring our sense of values, bring our good morals, our good behavior that we want our kids to exhibit in class and at home, the same online. There's a lot of tendency, right, because there's so much anonymity online in a lot of places, that you can just sort of throw out whatever you're thinking and there's no repercussions. But one thing I tell the kids when I talk to them is I say the internet does not have a delete button, and it does not have an I'm sorry button. So anything you post is there permanently, whether you think it's temporary or not. And mastery is very important as well. So there are a number of things that we'll talk about later in terms of the kids taking advantage of their skills and using online resources to create portfolios, create a presence, sort of set the groundwork for later on when college admissions groups will look at them and look at what their online reputation is, so to speak, and what they've done so far. So being able to master those things. Okay, so we're going to dive right in here. We split the presentation up basically into 4 areas. There's be online, be safe, be savvy, and be kind. Be online is all about setting up the environment. That's definitely a place where I find a lot of us as parents pick up a pointer or two of things that we weren't comfortable with or didn't know. Setting the rules and living by them and modeling them for our kids, right? Setting the example. The rules are going to stick better if they're co-developed, call it. So if we involve our kids in the rules, they're going to be more invested in them. Being safe is all about taking care of our privacy, our information, and ourselves. Being kind, right, to other people and to ourselves. There's a big message here in this presentation, and I'll just mention it right now, which is that it's so important for our kids to know that they're not the sum total of the number of likes and the number of retweets and the number of gorgeous beautifuls that are commented and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, that goes right to the heart of a lot of our kids, and it hurts and it causes all kinds of problems. So important to be kind to yourself and to others. And lastly, be savvy. Forming good habits, forming good uses and good ways to further yourself and your future by taking advantage of all the good parts of the internet and all the places where you can go to further enhance your skills and to showcase your skills. So let's go. Any questions so far? Nope. All right. Remember, pop them into the Q&A whenever you've got them, and I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. First is about setting up the environment. Number one, for our physical health, right? We want to have a comfortable place to sit, good chair, good posture, sit up straight, good ergonomics, and make sure that our elbows, is it elbows? Yeah, elbows higher than the wrists, I believe, for the keyboard. But even things like taking care of our eyes and the lighting in the room, and the 30-30-30 rule, which is every 30 minutes, take a 30-second break and look 30 feet ahead of you. It just sort of refocuses your eyes. My 30-30-30 is my dog. I just take a break and go out for a walk, and I'm looking plenty more than 30 feet because I can't sit at a screen all day, and we shouldn't expect that our kids can either, although if you put Fortnite in front of them, maybe they could. They certainly can. Blue light glasses are another thing that people use. I have not used them, but I've heard positive feedback from them just to help with eye strain on computers, because we are all staring at screens a lot more than we did pre-pandemic. Mentioned seating, so having a good chair, good back support, whatever you need there to be comfortable when you're sitting, especially because different rooms in the house are being used for internet access now, and you could have your phone, your iPad, your laptop anywhere. It doesn't have to be sitting at a desk. So just having a comfortable seating position for the long-term work. And of course, taking breaks, most importantly, right? Just move around. If you've got a dog, it's a great excuse. Any pet that requires you to go walk, they'll remind you that it's time to get up. Or if you have an Apple Watch, that'll remind you that it's time to stand up too, which is good. Always good just to get the blood flowing and get a break away from the screen and take care of yourself and your eyes. Okay, so setting up the environment, keeping your network running. Very important, especially now. that we're all at home, or not, we were all at home. There's a little back to school now, depending on where you are. Some kids may be going, some kids may still be remote learning. Regardless, there are a couple of things here that are really important. Number one is limiting access to your router. Now, if you're saying, hey, David, what's a router? I will go there with you. So it's the box in your house or in your apartment, wherever you are, that your internet connection is coming through. And that router will then give access to the rest of your devices in your home, whether they're laptops, desktops, phones, smart cameras, doorbells, all the smart devices, right? So very important piece and critical piece if you want an internet connection is your router. It's probably somewhere in a closet or behind someone's desk getting all kinds of fuzz on it. It's somewhere in your house, whether you have Comcast or Verizon or whoever provides the service in Maui, I have no idea, but it's all the same. There's a router somewhere in your house. Now, limiting access to that is important because what do you think the first thing your kids are going to do when you get a router? Is they'll look at the back label of it, which has the administrator login and the administrator password conveniently on a sticker on the back, or maybe even etched into the plastic. If you can log onto the router, you have God power in the house over everybody's internet. So the first thing you want to do is limit access to it, change the password it came with, and do not share it. You are responsible for the internet in the home. You are paying for it, and therefore you need to have control of it. So change that password. Don't share it. If there are any updates, like firmware updates or updates to the software that run on it, do those. That's step one. So limit access to your router. The second one most people don't know about necessarily is separating the network. So if you've ever logged into your router, into the configuration screen, you'll probably see in the wireless settings that there are two networks. One is your main network, which has whatever name you gave it or the name that your internet provider gave it. And then there's the same network, typically -guest. So there's a guest network. And surprise, that is not just for people that come over and want to use your internet. I doubt nearly all of us probably don't use it for that purpose. What it is really great for is that's where, if you're working at home like I am full time, you don't want to share the network with the doorbell and the camera and the teddy bear or nanny cam or whatever's in your house, that those devices are not built with security in mind primarily. So you also don't want to share with your kids that are streaming or they're playing games. You want to be on the separate network because if you have a work laptop at home, you don't want to mix and match your data with any of the other data in the house. And typically your company won't want you to do that either. So what you do is you put your work machine, your laptop or desktop, on the main network, and everybody else is on the guest network. Or if that's not possible, put the computers on the main network and all the other, at least all the other smart home devices on another one. But ideally, you want to keep work separate from personal. And that's the way you do it. You use your main network and your guest network. Very easy. It makes no difference to the devices which network they're connecting to. They're still getting an internet connection, but they cannot communicate or send any malicious software or breach the security of your work machine if it's on a separate network. So really great use of separating the network there. Next is using a Wi-Fi extender. So if you've got dead spots in your house because maybe you have 2, 3, 4 floors, whatever it is, or a basement where the signal's usually not quite good, a Wi-Fi extender or wireless extender literally is that. It just plugs in. It's a lot of times it looks like your actual router. The internet providers sell it, generally goes for somewhere around $100 US. And it connects with the main router and boosts the signal throughout the house. So if you have dead spots, that's a good way to do it. Sure, you've also seen in different places things called mesh routers, which are basically doing the same thing. They're like flying saucers or towers. They come in ones or twos or threes. So depending on how many floors you have, it can work to the same effect, but it's for boosting your internet signal. So especially because so many people are home that weren't home all the time. If people are in different rooms and different floors in the house and there are dead spots, this is the way you address that. Another thing is to stagger time online. You may not think about this normally, but if you're trying to get your work done and your kids are home streaming Netflix, it's going to hog up a lot of the bandwidth, right? And you multiply that by the number of kids you have that are number of streams that are going, and you see where the issue can get. So you'll notice this if your internet kind of gets slow and the kids are home, that could be one reason why. So you can set up a schedule for that, right? And say, okay, this is time mom or dad is going to be working. If you want to stream, here's the time when streaming is okay, and that sort of thing. So the idea is you don't want everyone online doing really intensive things to hog the bandwidth all at the same time. Okay. So the next thing is secure everything. Pretty obvious, but you may not think about a few of the things on this list. Number one, use security software on all the devices. So that doesn't mean just the desktops and the laptops, but it means the phones and it means the gaming systems. And so every device that can have security software on it should have security software on it. The firewall, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically a traffic cop on your computer or on your base, more or less on the desktops or laptops, right? There's really not one on phones and iPads and things like that. But the desktop computers, the laptop computers have them, and they're basically going to control the flow of data. Just like a traffic cop, if you're trying to go to a particular website and that kind of traffic is not allowed, it will be blocked. If someone is trying to break into your computer over using a certain program, that'll be blocked, but everything else is allowed. So, excuse me. It's basically the traffic cop. This traffic's allowed, this traffic is not. Built into every desktop OS, whether you're running Mac or Windows, you've got a firewall. So do turn it on. It will automatically take care of letting in the traffic that it needs to operate. And then anything over and above that, you can filter yourself. Use strong passwords and change them often. Sometimes you're forced to change them, which is not a bad thing. It's hard to remember passwords, I know, but there are password programs. There are things built in, like the Mac has keychain access, which stores all your passwords for you so you don't have to remember them. Windows has password programs as well. But the key is, and I'll show you an example in a minute of what a strong password can be that is also memorable. Next is using multi-factor authentication, or MFA as it's referred to. Multi-factor authentication basically means something you know and something you have. That's two factors, multi-factor, something you know and something you have. So the obvious part of something you know is what? Your password, right? You know your password. Hopefully you do. And the second thing is something you have. It could be a little USB stick that you use to authorize. It can be your fingerprint, right? Or it can be your cell phone. A lot of the sites that we log into now, especially banks, right? They want you to set up multi-factor authentication, meaning that you put in your user ID and password, and then they send a code to your cell phone to make sure it's you, because only you should have your cell phone. You got your cell phone, you punch in that code, the second factor, and then you're allowed access. So that if your user ID or your password gets stolen, nobody can get into your account because multi-factor authentication is turned on, and there has to be that second thing, something you have physically. So anywhere that it's available to you, turn it on. It's just another way to secure your information. So again, if your password gets stolen, someone can't get into your account, because there's the additional step, the additional factor that's needed for authentication. And lastly is using a virtual private network, or VPN. Basically, what that does in software is it just creates a tunnel between the information on your computer and where it's going so that nobody can spy on that traffic. That's the whole intent of a VPN. So it keeps that traffic safe and secure in that tunnel. And that's why you want to use one. There are a ton of options out there for VPN. Schools require them. Maybe yours already does. So the kids working at home have to sign into the VPN first before accessing the school network. We have the same thing at Trend Micro. We have a VPN. We have to sign into that in order to access all the internal resources. So it's very common. And you can even get a bunch of free ones for personal use. Always a good idea. And by the way, if you're ever in an airport or a Starbucks or anywhere else that has an insecure wireless network, that is, it doesn't have a lock next to it when you're trying to sign on, there's no password, you just click and go, don't. Okay. Any questions yet? No, very quiet group. All right. Onward we go. Next, setting up in the environment is practicing good habits. First, update. It's not just for the sake of getting a new version and for companies to get more money. And a lot of times the incremental updates aren't, you're not charged for them anyway. Most of them are for patching security problems, bug fixes, that sort of thing. Microsoft is famous for having Patch Tuesday when they patch all their software. So always a good idea to do the same, and it doesn't have to be Tuesday. A lot of the apps that we use have updates all the time for, like I said, for new features or for bug fixes or for security enhancements. Just set them to update themselves automatically, or just do it daily, every night. Updating is a lot more important now than it used to be, because it used to be just for a profit thing, putting out a new version. But now when there are new security issues just about every day, it's important to make sure that we're running latest versions. Strong password. So we mentioned this before about what does it mean to have a strong password? There are usually rules for it. Uppercase has to have an uppercase letter, at least one, and a lowercase letter, and a number, and a special character, which is like an exclamation mark or whatever. But you can even make a long password or mixed up password easier to remember in this case, right? So if the COVID phrase, I might need to buy more toilet paper soon. So that is sort of abbreviated with the MN2BMT. So that's just one way you can remember. Myself, I would almost change this to the whole phrase with spaces and maybe some characters like a 3 instead of the E and so forth. The point is you don't want to make it easy for someone to guess or for a bank of computers to guess, because threat actors, malicious actors know that the most popular password last year on Facebook was password, believe it or not. And that people are they want their passwords to be very simple and such. And that's not what we want. We want something that's difficult to guess and difficult for a bank of computers to figure out. And so the more we use a lot of passwords now, you can put in spaces. So you can put in a phrase or a sentence and make it something memorable, but still make it hard to guess. And lastly is backup and store your data safely. It seems like an obvious thing. Not all of us do it, or not all of us do it to the degree that we should, which is have a use a service like iCloud, and there's a ton of services out there that do online backups. But it's also just as important to have a physical local copy as well. So backing up to an external flash drive, for instance. And again, there are built-in backup programs. They're on Windows, they're on the Mac. I'm an Apple guy, so I just know all the Apple stuff generally. Time Machine is the backup for Apple, and it just automatically backs up to your drive every hour. So you don't even have to think of it. Just plug it in and leave it. And if you really want to go nuts, there's the Super Safe, which is back up to another drive and give that drive to your brother, your sister, your aunt, uncle, cousin, parents, whatever, at another physical location. And that's for the super paranoid or super safe. If something happens to your house and all your stuff gets burned in a fire, God forbid, you've got all your data some other location, right? And it may be the same online, but backup. Something goes wrong online, you have a physical backup. Something goes wrong with a physical backup, you have online. It's just all about having options and layers of backup. So next is tools, tech tools, which is using the tools you probably already have. Some of them don't even cost any money. They can help with filtering content by age. They can help with limiting in-app purchases. I know you probably saw stories back when of kids making all kinds of ridiculous charges on their parents' credit card because they had to buy some colored jewels in a game on the iPad or iPhone. That's what that's all about. Limiting time spent online, or giving you a window on what your kids are actually spending time doing by looking at where the traffic is going. Not in a big brothery way, but in a data, in collecting the data and figuring out where the traffic is going. So these are available on, they could be on your router, they could be on devices like iPads, they're definitely on game consoles, phones, security software you're already using, hopefully all of you, yes. And within the app stores themselves, there are tools to use and sites and apps. So you could probably, you may find those tools under family settings. They could be under things called parental controls, privacy settings, or even a newer phrase which has come up lately, which is digital wellness. So do look for them and use them. Oops. One of the tools, of course, the Apple guy shows this one, right? This is Apple's screen time in iOS, which is the operating system running on your phone or your iPad. It's just taking a note of how long the screen is being used, literally. To get there, you just go to settings and then to screen time. And under your family, if you've got it set up as a family account, you can see any member of your family account in iCloud. Even kids under 13 can be set up for this. So if you click on one of the family members, then you'll be able to see the screen time, weekly reports. You can set restrictions for what they can download or the content, age appropriate, right? So this is one place to do that, or even time spent on certain types of apps like games. So you can control a lot on the iOS devices. And since we see a lot of these now, it's become like the new digital pacifier to keep a kid busy, especially the younger ones, right? This is one way to make sure that the content is cool by you. And that's where you can do that. All right. Google has something called Google Family Link. All right, and that is another place where you can set this configuration for things that you want to monitor. So it'll show you here, like the picture, Toontastic 3D, an hour and 30 minutes on that, 56 minutes in photos, 28 in Gmail, etc. So you can filter apps, you can limit the screen time, and you can even track your kid's location. All the phones have GPS built in. So that's just an added benefit. Now, Google owns YouTube. So YouTube also has something called a supervised account. So how many of the kids are using YouTube? All of them. So this is something you can set up, and you can choose one of the content settings for your kid. So either explore a little, explore more, and they describe what those are. In most of YouTube, because as you know, YouTube is sort of the wild, wild west, and you can get places that you don't want to go very quickly. And so if your kid uses YouTube, this is a real good way of making sure the content's appropriate there. So here's an example of a tech tool within an app. So earlier this year, TikTok announced family pairing, sorry. And it basically allows you to limit content and time that the kids spend on TikTok. I'm just curious how many of your kids are using TikTok? Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Just a yes or a no. It's, of course, very popular, right? The new dance craze is mine is not allowed. Yes, no, no, yes. Big yes, no, no, yes, no. Good. So a good mix and a couple of not allows. And yeah, I can't say I blame you there. Negative. Okay. So in basically to set this up, you need to have TikTok on both your device and your kid's device. All right. And even if you don't use it, you can just put it on your device just to set this up. You can set it up on your phone if your kid say uses your phone too, but it's look like most of you have older kids, so they definitely have their own. You do need both devices to set it up the first time, but once it's set up, you can limit the time and the content from your phone while your kid uses TikTok on theirs. Basically, you go to the safety center and select digital well-being. So remember, I said this phrase is relatively new. This is a TikTok thing, digital well-being. And you can see there's screen time restricted mode and family pairing. So you select family pairing, and then you can assign each phone as a parent or a teen, and then set time limits on time, content, or contacts. So these are just examples of free tech tools already available. Just do a little research, spend a little time to set them up. It's very easy. Roblox is big with the kids now too. It's cool because it's games that were created by kids for kids. So a lot of kids are playing Roblox now. Discord is another tool. Now you said 15 and over, so I'm showing you this because chances are if they're not using it, they're going to be using it soon. Discord is a big chat option, right? But it's not all about chat. You can do video on it. You can share screens on it. So it's sort of a mishmash of chat and Zoomish type of things in there too. But it's a platform that's mostly used by gamers. But a lot of companies are using it. There are a bunch of people in Trend Micro that use it for different purposes, getting their teams together, discussing projects. But it's out there, and there's a lot that you can do with it. So just keep your eye out for that. It does have some security settings in it as well, where you can put a protection on direct messaging, right? Because chat with anyone is probably not a good idea. So it will scan and delete any messages that your kid gets that contain explicit material. So you can choose keep me safe, which is scan messages from everyone. My friends are nice, which is scan messages from everyone unless they're already a friend, and don't scan. There are also settings for who can add you as a friend, right? So probably don't want everyone there, but maybe friends of friends is okay, for instance. And like I said, a lot of kids use this to get on together and either learn for school or play games together. And since you can share audio and video, you can watch somebody else playing, etc. So there is a setting for block as well. If someone reaches out and you don't know who they are, the kids can block them. So Xbox, remember I said the gaming platforms also had these settings. Xbox calls them family settings. And so in here, you can filter apps, you can limit screen time, you can approve spending or friend requests. You can see in the graphic there, it says Jordan wants more screen time. You'd get a pop-up on your device allowing you to either add time or hit the not today. And under that, if you can read it, it says Alex wants to add last roar as a friend. So you can allow or review and so on and so forth. So yes, the game systems do have these settings too, because they all have ways of communicating out. They have browsers on them when kids can browse the internet. So it's not just game playing that's going on there. And especially when they're wearing a headset and doing the chatting, you can't hear what's on the other side generally. So Important to check out the family settings there too. What would we be as a security company if we also didn't give you an option? tmfamily.care. We have a new app called Trend Micro Family that you can download to your device. And it allows you to work with your kids, protect the kids on Android and iOS devices. There's awareness, there's protection, and there's also guidance. So a lot of good information there. We're very big on this. Like I said, internet safety for kids and families has been going on since 2012. So there's been a lot of work done, not only within Trend Micro, but we work with other agencies as well. So tmfamily.care, and you'll be able to get that. I believe it's free also. So check that out. I'm just going to pause, see if there's any questions. I don't see any. All right. Hopefully this is helpful so far. Since there's quiet, I always get nervous with quiet, but you can post in the chat if everything's cool. Okay, next is setting the rules. So after you've set up the environment, now it's time to set the rules. So it's a good idea, especially for younger kids. I know most of you have older ones, but for the younger ones to think about building, even the older ones, really, if you've never had the conversation, to start building the rules together with them and include the consequences of breaking the rules, right? So they're going to be more apt to stick to something, like I mentioned before, that they help build. And for the kids with siblings, they can be a good force in sort of holding each other accountable if there's rules, right? So for the first rule is what? What apps are they allowed to use? If your kids ask you to download a new app or use a new game or do some homework, stick to the ones that are heavily reviewed. We do have plenty of resources online to point you to for that are other parents that have gone through this and have rated them, so forth. Ask others if they're allowing their kids to use them so you can work as groups and teams. Okay, thanks for the comments on the chat. Just checking it because there were no questions so far. All right, so next is when. When are they allowed to use it? So kids are online, obviously for school and for fun, now more than ever. It's really important to be clear about when they can use tech for fun, using a 24-hour exercise that I'm going to talk about in a sec. And that exercise is going to help your kids think about other activities that are important and healthy for them, and how much screen time and for fun can they fit into their day and still have time for the other things. All right. Next is how long. How long can they be online? Any given day, we've got to allow screen time for some fun, but be clear about starting and end times with them, right? I had to really do this with my son, who was heavy into Fortnite. It's making a comeback now. But that used to be going on at all hours when he was home for the summer from school. And I don't get summer vacation from work. I got to go to work the next day. So I really don't want to hear yelling and screaming and watch out and get the weapons at midnight or 1 a.m. So remember, I said about controlling the access, especially from the router and other tools. I actually have a device that Trend Micro makes called Home Network Security. And it's a device that plugs into the router. And that really gives me control over everything. So I can say things like, guess what? The PlayStation goes to sleep at 11 o'clock. So daddy can too. Right. So there's all kinds of things too. So how long can they do it? Start and end times. Use the tech tools like what I just discussed, or other things, the free apps and so forth, to help you out there. Where can they be while using it? So with all of us home, the location in the house is even more important. If they're going to be video chatting with a group of friends, they consider a spot where you can check in on them, but also have them use headphones if you're pretty close by and you're trying to work, or another of your children is doing homework or sleeping, right? So there's all kinds of different schedules and activities going on in the house now. The house is the home office, the house is school, the house is a lot of things, not just home anymore. So very important to figure out the wheres too, if you can. And some people live in smaller spaces where that's not so much possible, but you can, figure out ways to sort of separate. and have everyone be respectful of what everyone else is doing at the time. And lastly is with whom. So for younger kids starting out with social media, anti-social media, or gaming, or just getting their own phone for the first time, and they're setting up chats, about talking to them about who they can connect with. Maybe they just start with, grandma and grandpa, and obviously mom and dad, and brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and sort of the the boundary widens and gets broader as they go along and get older and learn to use the technology more. Right. So if have them ask you each time they want to add new people, or at least talk to them about who they're connecting with. But building the contact list together even can help you keep the lines of communication open. Different, aspect when you're talking about the older kids, right? But again, you are probably the one paying for their phone service, even when they're 15 and older, right? They're not paying for their phone. They're not paying for their internet. So let them know that you may check on their phone from time to time if you're concerned about something, and you have every right to do it. Okay, so the 24-hour rule. This is based on advice from the Center on Media and Child Health. It's about looking at the screen time as one of many things that our kids can do each day. All right, so encourage your kids to think about filling up all the things they need to do in a day to stay healthy, to learn, to care for the family, friends, the dog, or home, right? So how much of all those things do they take up in 24 hours? How much do all of those things take up in 24 hours? And have them write it down, or with you, or on their own, or with you. So the first thing is, and if all those things are done, how much time is left over, right? And if there's any time left over, can it be used for fun time on screens, right? So how much time does it take to do things that support their physical health? Sleep, we need that. Meals, exercise, outdoor time, right? I remember when I was a kid, we used to just come home from school, hop on the bike, disappear until dinner time, but mom and dad knew you were coming home, and we just go out and have a good time. But now we're sort of getting in this old turtle society where everyone is in their shell. All right, don't get me started. All right, so things that support their health. How much time to support them as learners, right? So school, homework, reading, hobbies, and some of those hobbies may be required time online, right? May require time online or on the computer, like if they like to edit video or make music, things like that. How much time to support relationships? Even more important now that we were so locked down and apart, and just starting to be able to be with other people. So time with family or friends and neighbors, socially distanced, of course. And is there any time left over after you've done all these things? So this helps them to prioritize, but they also get to see screen time as part of their whole day, not the sum total of their whole day. Their whole day includes a lot of other things like are on this column. So this exercise helps to discourage them from seeing tech time as forbidden fruit, right, or taboo. It puts it into a healthier perspective of how they spend their time in a typical 24-hour period. And if there's time for screens at the end, consider doing something like a menu, or writing activities on pieces of paper and putting them in a jar or a box, and they get to pick from. So if there's time left over, they pick one of those. It should be a mix of activities, like some are online, some are offline, that they can spend their leftover time. Yes, Cassandra, you will be able to review the recording again at a later time. So yeah, if anyone had to jump or anything, this is being recorded for later, and I'll send it out. Again, mix of activities. And just because there's 4 hours left over, it doesn't mean Star Wars online for 4 hours, right? Stick to the limits you set, and use the tools like we talked about before. And finally, remind your kids about being a good digital citizen. And it means using technology in a safe, kind, and healthy ways, right? Healthy. and to come to you if they're ever worried or they need help or they see something that makes them uncomfortable. So important for us as parents is setting the example and modeling the behavior that we want. So I'm just curious, plop in the chat, if you will, what rules do you have for yourself or the house? What rules have you set in terms of technology? Go ahead and pop them in the chat if you've got any rules at home that you've set. No devices at dinner. That's a very, very popular one. And there's an offshoot to that one. There's another one. No devices at the dining table. Phone stops at 8. Good. That's another good lesson, actually. And that's a way for you to help the kids understand that just like the phones and all the devices run low on battery and need a recharge, so do we. So when we go to sleep to recharge, the devices go to sleep too. And maybe that's in a common area away from all the bedrooms, like downstairs in the kitchen or wherever it is, where all the devices get to go to sleep and plug in and recharge. And so that the humans can get sleep and recharge as well without any distractions. Because the last thing you want to do before you go to bed is really drown your eyes and your brain in all these intense images and action, because that's when the kids really have time, and adults too, falling asleep, because you've stimulated your brain so much. Let's see what else we got. Phone stop. No erasing messages. That's an interesting one. Might want to hear more about that. Phone goes on charger at 6 p.m. Perfect. Limit screen time and not give personal info. Like it. Screen time ends at 9. Good. So there's lots of rules here, and that's important, and good ones too. But it's all about also how we model that for the kids, right? So if, for instance, our rule is no devices at the dinner table, what happens when our phone rings and it's in our office and it's within hearing distance of the dining room or wherever you're eating? Do we get up and run over to the office to get the phone, or do we just leave it alone, right? So this is all about how we model the behavior, because if the kids see that, oh, it's okay, the device is in another room, but if it rings, we got to go run and answer it. Everyone's got to have the consistency of the rules there. Yeah, so can't delete some messages. How come some chat I cannot see? We'll discuss that later. Remind me about that one. Can't delete messages. Interesting. I'm wondering how that's enforced. Yes. And remember, questions, please. Actually, it doesn't matter. I guess it's a small enough group, but now they're starting to fly by. So the questions, please put them in the Q&A so I don't miss them and not in the chat. But I see, Michelle, do you know anything about Teams? Oh, much more than I ever wanted to know about Teams. That is our platform of chat and messaging at Trend Micro. So we used to be heavy Zoom users. Zoom had a bunch of trouble with security, and I guess our company decided that we're so heavily invested in Microsoft anyway, we might as well use Teams. So yes, how are you able to monitor communication in the chat and Teams chat? Right. So again, the security programs are going to have some help with that, mostly around, though, filtering the content that's in those chat messages, and just making sure, for instance, there's no malicious file exchange and that kind of thing. But Teams, as far as I know, is really mostly meant for corporate and that kind of chat and activity, not so much for kid to kid. So I don't know off the top of my head if there's any monitoring of that per se. Like I said, the only thing that I'm aware of is we do have security software that protects companies from employees sending out secrets and confidential information and things like that, and or infected files and things like that. But nothing I'm aware of about monitoring. I'm happy to check on that and follow up with it, though, because that's a decent question. But Is Teams used a lot in school? Is that how they're using it? Oh, okay. I see. The school's been using Teams and the kids use the chat box. Interesting. Okay. So that one, again, I'm used to it mostly from the corporate side and not really as a personal use type of thing. But yeah, I will capture that one. So that's a good one. Okay. Please say anything about team, please set to everyone. Oh yeah. So if you're electronics puts away once homework is done, mom checks all that. I love it. I love it. Great. Students do have access to Teams on campus. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I will look into that. I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head, but that could be because that wasn't Microsoft's original goal with Teams. That's why they called it Teams, but we'll see. Yeah, working on monitoring the chat function while at school. Okay, so that's good. I will definitely follow up on that one. That's a great question. All right, so let's move along. Looks like we go to use the chat and we use, okay, good. And I know when the Zoom gets recorded also, it saves the chat and the stuff too. So I'll have that to refer to when we get back to that. Okay, so let's continue on and let's talk about be safe, privacy, information, and self. Privacy settings. So it may be obvious thing to say, hey, use privacy settings. But when you think about things like Facebook, for instance, or Meta, whatever the heck they want to call themselves, their whole model is everyone shares everything. So you can bet that the privacy settings on there are not set to benefit you. They're going to be set to benefit them and the information flow that they want to see. So using the privacy settings, checking into the privacy settings, and setting them in such a way that's going to protect you or your kid is our responsibility. It is not the company's responsibility. The last thing they want is for you to lock it down as tight as possible, because that defeats the purpose of something like Facebook, where it's share everything, right? And the privacy settings are in a lot of places, and they're pretty much required to have them now. Even places like Fortnite, mention that. If you click on the little hamburger menu at the top, you'll get a bunch of choices, one of which is privacy. And you can see there where it says privacy set to private. Now, if you click on that, you get a few options. So this is your game privacy. So if you want it to be public, where you play with anyone, only friends, or private. So there's the ways that you can keep the game private there. Now, one thing I ask the kids, especially when we talk about things like, here's a good example, Snapchat. Or is that Instagram? No, I think it's Snapchat. Now, who reads this? Nobody reads the end user license agreement, or EULA, as it's called, EULA. Everyone just clicks next, I agree, go. So when I present to kids, I ask them, so how many of you are using Snapchat? Like a ton of hands go up, right? And you agree to the policy and the license, everything. And did anybody ever read it? Not one hand. So is it free? Snapchat, is it free? Every hand goes up. And I say, really? Is it free? And the answer is no. Because even though you're not paying for it monetarily, you are paying for the use of the app. You are relinquishing your privacy. If you were to read this licensing agreement, you would see that it says, basically, anything you post is yours, but we can do anything we want with it whenever and wherever we want. And then the kids are like, what? I didn't agree to that. Oh, yes, you did. So it is not free. These apps are not free, and they're not set up to enhance or protect your privacy, right? The whole model here of these apps is share. And Instagram, or Insta as the kids call it, where it claims you can send a picture and you can make it disappear in 2 seconds. That is a fabulous visual feature. It means nothing in terms of what that picture, where that picture just went to, which is thousands of other servers that the company that has on the internet that are backing up everything constantly. So the bottom line is assume nothing is private. Once we're on using these apps and even email, you know that that's not private, because how many spam messages do you get? And that's because databases of users are sold, and it's all about the money and etc. So nothing is private. You pay for these apps with your privacy. That's really the bottom line. Secondly is protecting information. So another group of people who want to access our information, right? It's not just Snapchat, Facebook. People you've probably never met, and you never will. Cyber criminals are using all kinds of tricks all the time to get our personal information. They're not necessarily targeting kids, but because the kids use a lot of the sites and the apps and the services that everyone else does, they can be victims of cybercrime too. I remember there was an app called what was it? Something Pets. There was a stuffed animal you would buy and you would bring it home, and it had a little tag or an IR code on it. Neopets, that was it, Neopets. And it was really targeted at, I think, 4 to 6 or 6 to 8 year olds. They got a big kick out of it. They brought the animal home. They scanned a thing with the phone or whatever, and they could name it online and feed it and take care of it. Great thing. But the website had an advertising banner on it when you went to the website, and it said, measure your love with your partner. And I was like, what? These 6-year-olds, right? So advertising companies certainly don't care. But the companies that, like Neopets, I don't want to call them out particularly because it happens everywhere, but they're not looking at who necessarily is advertising on their site. That revenue stream is coming in and it's all good as long as the money keeps flowing. But little do they know that the advertisement is not targeting age appropriate, and it's only trying to get information from the kids who may not know any better at that age to share things about themselves and personal information and collect that as well. So these are the different ways. These are examples of ways that kids might fall into a cyber criminal's trap. Poison search results or fake search results is a really good one. In this case, there's a picture. So when something happens, like Michael Jackson dies and the kids are going crazy, and what's the first place they're going to go for information? Google. And so they're going to do a Google search, and they just figure that the first result that comes up in the search is obviously the best one. So click, without a thought of what was clicked on. But cyber criminals know that that's how most people search, and they use a lot of money and a lot of other techniques to bump up their search results for their fake site so that it will bubble up to the top or close to the top. And what you're actually clicking on is not, it may give you some information about what you're seeking, but it's also could be doing things in the background. It could be asking you for additional information so you could add even more secret news that nobody really knows, and so forth. So poison search results, that's popular. Free offers are up there all the time. My son used to see those when he was really young, and he'd come screaming to me in the next room, Dad, I can get a free iPad. I just need your credit card, but they're not going to charge you. Like, oh, okay, let's have a little discussion here, son. High interest content, that's another one. So it's content that's just too interesting not to click on. Maybe it's a premiere of a new movie and no one's seen this trailer before, but if you click here, you can download a special viewer that will show you that trailer. And that special viewer is laced with all kinds of malicious software that might record keystrokes on your computer from that time on. So all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Even fake information posted on social networks. So this is an interesting one because there are so many accounts that are broken into. where you can, a cyber criminal can assume the identity of someone else who happens to be your friend. So in this case, it's grayed out at the top, but the story, if you can't read it, says breaking news: Lady Gaga found dead in hotel room. Now, I'm sure teenagers all over the world would go crazy if they saw that. And they may not click on it normally. They say, no, I would have heard it other places. And then they look at the top there, right above it, and they say, oh my God, David Abramowitz likes this link. He's my friend. I trust him. So if he it must be legit. Click, right? But it's not legit. It's that someone busted into my account, guessed my password, and is now, liking things like this, so that you'll see it on your feed, and the link will appear, and they want you to click the link, and you get it. All of them are trying to get you to click, download, or enter something that you probably don't want to. So what can you tell your kids? Use secure sites only. And poll question. Use secure sites only. And then what that means is, if you look at a website and you see a little padlock next to the address, it's HTTPS instead of HTTP, which is clear text, no security whatsoever. That S is for SSL, secure sockets layer. Don't worry about what it means, what it stands for, just as much what it means. So it's a more secure site. It's not perfect, but never go anywhere, especially if you're going to be entering any kind of personal information for a good reason that is not secure. Stick to sites you know and trust, right? If it looks suspicious, don't click on it. A lot of times, if you mouse over a link and you wait a few seconds, if you just hover over it, it'll give you the real place that it's going. So if it's going somewhere that's completely nonsense or completely not what you're expecting, that's a really good indication. So by the way, Trend Micro checks all the links on Facebook. We do have a deal with them for that. And software also checks every URL, every link that's in emails and websites and so forth. So to make sure that it's not bogus like this. If it's too good to be true, we all know that adage, right? It probably is. Look out for pop-ups, things like that. I had my dad call me the other day, and he said, I keep getting this pop-up that my security software needs renewing. And I said, who's it from, Dad? And he said, it's from McAfee. I said, and then I said, Dad, you remember me? I'm your son. I work for Trend Micro. I installed Trend Micro software on your machine. I was, yeah. So, God bless them. I mean, they're part of a big target, right? My parents are 86 and 83, and major target for cyber criminals, because they just didn't grow up with this stuff. It's foreign to them, and they don't know all the little tips and all the little tricks that go on. So it's a constant educational thing, and it's scary, because sometimes they get burned. They can get burned pretty badly. Update your security software regularly, like we talked about before. Use different passwords, all the things that we talked about there. So poll question time, just to make sure you're still with me, still awake. It's the last poll question of the night. It's, do any of your kids have their own cell phone? Choices are A, yes; B, no; C, not yet but soon; D, not for a few more years. And poll is open. Don't answer in the chat, answer in the poll. Answer in the poll. All right. Hey, good. Everyone stuck around. Excellent. I'm always afraid I lose people if I don't hear too many questions. Good. All right. So looks like we're at 78%. Okay. All right. Let's give it a few more seconds. Checking how we're doing on time. Oh, okay. We're going to have to speed up, I think, a little. All right. Let me end this poll. And it looks like mostly yes, for sure. Okay. Which brings us to the next phase and why we ask this, which is protect yourself. Now, everyone knows that the most popular feature of the phone that kids like to use the most is, I'll give you a hint, it's not calling. I don't think my kids ever dial a number on the phone. It's it's the strangest thing. It's like, why do we give them phones anymore? Why don't we just give them, like iPod touches or things? They don't need a phone. Nobody dials. Nobody calls anybody. Yeah, exactly. It's just texting, games. So the thing we have to talk to, oh yeah, what they use it for, you were probably answering that. No, it's not texting and not games. It's the camera. The camera is the most popular thing, right? It's what they take all their selfies with and all kinds of pictures, including some that are not so good that I'm sure you know about. And without mentioning in particular what that is, the kids are taking those pictures, and there are a few problems with that we have to address here. The first is that sometimes they're taking them because it's a personal one-to-one thing. And if I just send it to my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my partner, whatever, it's going to be sacred and never shared. And we all know that's not the case, right? Because relationships break up, people get angry at each other, and what better revenge? And we've seen what happens to psyches, and we've seen what happens to precious lives over these. That's one issue. The second issue is that possession, even if the pictures are on your kids' phones, that is possession of that material, and that is a that's a felony. That's a federal offense, possession and or distribution. So the best thing to tell your kids, if anyone ever sends something like that to them, is delete it right away. Because what happens is, if something gets around, we had an incident in my kids' middle school years ago. One of the boys had somehow convinced a lot of the girls to pose for him and take pictures. Of course, he convinced them he'd never show anybody. So one day he was walking the hallways and literally charging the other boys $5 to have a look at the pictures. And one person tapped him on the shoulder. He turned around and it was the principal. So you can imagine what went down after that. But that is a big problem for a number of reasons, most of which you probably know. But the other one is the federal offense. It's a felony, and that kid can be charged with possession and distribution. We do work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, so we help take down those kinds of rings. And we also know the sites. So even at the corporate level, we'll protect our corporate customers from the sites that are distributing those. But really, what the kids have to know is just delete right away. And they don't want to be part of the chain. So if there's an investigation and the police get involved because of an incident like what happened at my kids' middle school, the chain that can't come to them because they're not in possession of it. They didn't send it, because there's not going to be that evidence as well. So it is important to talk to your kids about that. It can be a big problem. And one sign of that, by the way, is, I'm sure you can guess which room in the house is the most private, which is the bathroom, because that's the one place that you won't come in, right? So just be aware that maybe one of the rules of the house is no phones in the bathroom. And that's how you can address that, maybe, right? So that's one thing. But it is important to talk about that. Again, delete it. Don't be part of an investigation chain. the kid's not going to be, thrown in jail necessarily, right? But it's a federal offense, not something you want to get involved in. And by the way, the cameras have the location settings on them, right? They share a bunch of information in the phones. It's something we can get into. We do another module on that, but the location where the picture was taken is recorded down to the latitude and longitude. So that's another thing about the pictures, is they're used to locate kids in that respect. So anyway, that's the word about the camera. We need to cover that, and hopefully it won't be an issue for any of you. Is there a way to monitor the camera? Not a way where you would be notified when a picture was taken necessarily, but there's a few things to keep in mind, especially if it's an iPhone and iCloud photos are turned on and you have a family iCloud plan, right? There's photo sharing in there as well. So that can be one way, because all of that winds up on your iCloud account. And so you can see the pictures there. The second way is by just saying, hey, once in a while, I'm just going to check on your phone because I'm your father, I'm your mother, and I'm concerned, and I just want to make sure everything's cool, and you have every right if you want to. So there is that. Is there a way to take the location setting off the pictures? Yes, there absolutely is. So you can go into, on the phone, for instance, you can go into privacy and location services, go down to the camera or photos, and you can turn off that information. And I do recommend that, unless there's some reason why you really need it. There's really no reason. And you'd be surprised when you're in there for location services how many apps are actually wanting to track your location. So that's a good place to just shut them all off if there's no need for most of them to be tracking your location all the time. Okay, we hired a replacement PR that typically monitors the team's channel and process of bringing that practice back. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm still interested about that team stuff too. So, okay, let's move on. Another one is protecting yourself while playing games with other people. So obviously games have some benefits, right? It's not all about just goofing off. It's problem solving skills, it's motor skills, it's peripheral vision, pathfinding, hand-eye coordination. There are some good parts about it, right? Teamwork, for instance, but they also have risks, mostly due to the size and the anonymous nature of online gaming. This huge community. Right, so there's an increased risk. Malicious actors and threat actors, hackers, malware attacks, grooming happens, which is basically starting a text conversation. You're not who you say you are. You're not 15. You're whatever, usually some older guy, and start to have a conversation, start to get more information, and you know how that goes. So we do have plenty of information on that and the resources that we give you. It covers all the practical advice for making sure that when your kid's gaming online, that you've taken all the necessary precautions and set the security and such. All right. These are some of the infamous ones, especially that are being played these days. Okay. Moving on, being kind, right? I mean, this could be, you'd think this would be obvious, but we all know how people act online, especially the older kids, especially sometimes the adults, right? So always start with kindness. It's the right thing to do. We tell them it reflects on you. And by the way, it can reflect on you later on, which we're going to find out in just a few minutes. And also, even more critically, is respecting other people's privacy and other families' values and rules. And this can get to be a sticky situation, right? Because if you say, forbid R-rated movies for your kid who's 15, and they're just going to go over to their friend's house because, you know, Billy's parents don't care about that kind of stuff. That's a tough one, and that's a conversation that you probably want to have with the other parents. So we all need to talk about a time when there's not much respect, right? We need to have a lot of respect for each other in this regard. Age restrictions, language, all those kinds of things. And also time offline or time. So if your kid uses up their online time, are they going to try to go to a friend's and have more online time there, right? Nurturing kindness. So being supportive, being prepared, and we always have to model what kindness looks like, right? We try to help other people. We're supportive. If we see someone getting bullied, for instance, we're going to say something. We're not just going to be silent witnesses. And most importantly, especially for the kids, the online beauty contests and everything else can really get to them. And I mentioned this at the beginning, but it's so important to hammer home. It is be kind, be compassionate with yourself as well. And remember that we have to remind the kids that, you know, your value is not equal to the number of likes you get, the number of people who retweet your messages, the number of friend requests you get, the number of followers you get, or the number of subscribers to your YouTube channel online, right? We're far more than, the kids are far more than what all of those numbers mean. And so as parents, we have to remind them and show them that through all of the ways that we show them our love, right? That they are greater than those things. Such an important message, especially these days. And girls, I noticed, I have two girls, they're older now, 24 and 22, but when they were in middle school, actually in elementary school and then middle school, they get mean so much earlier. You know, I don't know why boys are busy goofing off and catching up on the maturity graph, but girls get very mean and critical with each other, it seems, at a really early age. So that stuff we have to nip it in the bud real early. And lastly, be savvy, good habits. So what does this mean? So one thing is having to get an idea of false information and what's true and what's not. So is everything we see online worth believing, or is it based in fact? Is every social media profile a real person? More than likely not. There's nothing to stop me from this example here with Instagram. I can copy that picture and I can paste it into my new account, which is not Original Joe. Now I'm copycat, and I say, you know, isn't my photo great? But it's not really my photo. This is just one example, right? But fake profiles are set up all the time, fake information. I don't want to say the other fake thing. Have you ever read or seen something and thought, wow, I need to share this with everyone? It's like sometimes not everything is as it seems, especially online, where so much can be copied and faked and lifted, and deep fakes now you hear about, right? Where it can actually appear like the person is saying something that they're not. It's crazy. Technology is nuts, and it's constantly cat and mouse in our field in cybersecurity too, of trying to stay ahead with what's going on. So a good rule of thumb is, if we tell the kids, if you ever see a new video or a story or something that might seem so incredible that you need to share it right now, try these two things before you do. Number one, pause. It's a good idea. It's a good idea to ask yourself a question, or just pause. Ask yourself a few questions. These are good ones to ask, right? Why was this made? So you can practice asking this before you go and believe or share things with others online. We can tell the kids that. So we can just check this list. Why was this made? Who made it? What's missing? Is there something missing in this? It's not quite right. How might different people interpret it? How do I know this is true? Who might benefit from this message? So don't let somebody else fool you. If you're constantly sharing things that are proven to be false or hoaxes, then what does that say about you? So that's a message we have to give to the kids. And also, who might be harmed by this message? We have built a resource with Namely about building healthy relationships with media. It's the Parent's Guide to Media Literacy, all available. That I'll show you the resources at the end where you can pull everything here. And the last part here is about encouraging good habits. Now, let me know in the chat, who's Googled themselves? Yes or no, have you ever Googled yourself? It is important to know who your cyber twin is, because I'll show you why that's going to be important. See some, oh, that's not a question. Okay. All right. So some of you have, some no. All right. I did, just to put together this presentation, and here's what I found. So let's see. I'm a co-chair of Lock Lord's FDA regulatory group. So that's cool. That sounds like that part of me can't be trouble. I'm a principal at the Abramelli Group. All right. I'm an attorney. I'm a Georgetown law professor. Sweet. But the one that I really liked was the IMDb one. I'm known for my work on Highlander, MacGyver, and V. So, hey, look out. I'm an actor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lot of things. By the way, none of these are me. But it's important. And why is it important? Well, it's part of not only is it part of encouraging good habits, but it's part of what can happen later on in life. So knowing who your cyber twin is, or knowing what your name is out there, is going to matter. I'm going to get to that on the next slide coming up here. But this is a Google. If you go to google.com/alerts, you can set up an alert for anything. So for instance, if I want to know every time that Trend Micro is mentioned on the internet, I can type in Trend Micro. I can create an alert. How often do I want to get alerted? And every time it happens, what sources do I want to look at? It's automatic is going to be everything. What language, what region, how many results, and where's it going to get delivered? So every time Trend Micro is mentioned, I will get an email here. So why is that important? Well, if you're keeping track of your online reputation, I can type in David Abramowitz here. Every time David Abramowitz is mentioned online, I will get a notification with the information in it. So why is that important, you might ask? I will tell you. Kaplan Institute study 2021. 65%. What do you think that number represents? Go ahead and type in the chat. That graduation cap should give you a little bit of an indication. See if you can figure it out. Take a stab. What is 65%? It comes from an annual study done by the Kaplan Institute every year. And they survey college and university admissions officers across the US. And so, any guesses? No? Acceptance rate? Nope. Identity theft? Nope. But you're sort of in the ballpark. So 65%. How many complete with a degree? Nope. 65 graduate rate? Nope. Ooh, applicants' online status prevents them from admission at college. Okay, Lonnie. Very much on the right track there. Check online presence of student. You guys are smart. So 65% is the percentage of officers who believe that looking at social media postings of an applicant to their school is fair game. 65% think it's fair game. And that was in 2021, right? So it's probably higher than that now. Now, of those 65% that thought it was fair game, 58% who looked found something bad. 58%. That's a lot. There was a girl who graduated here, I think up in Frederick, Maryland. She had a lacrosse scholarship or a field hockey scholarship. And this happened. She was one of the 58%. So they found some stuff about her online, not representative of the kind of kid that they wanted at their school. and lost the entire scholarship. It's crazy, right? So 58% who looked found something bad. Now, just as importantly, 42% found something good. And that's really important, because what we want to tell the kids is we want to encourage them to learn new skills online, right? Not just play games and Facebook feeds and everything, all the other garbage, right? Learning new skills, promote a cause, raise funds for something important, showcase your accomplishments. There are so many sites where you can submit your writing. If you like to, they like to take pictures, building a portfolio. If they like to edit videos, places, they can have a YouTube channel if it's age appropriate, right? There are a lot of places to showcase accomplishments, including contests. We encourage kids to enter contests, especially we have one every year at Trend Micro called What's Your Story? And we throw out something about the internet and ask all the kids to create videos that represent that idea. And there are big, thousands, $10,000, $25,000 prizes, huge stuff. So entering contests is a great way to showcase their skills, right? And all of this is because if the admissions officer comes and looks at their online reputation, what are they going to find? And the more good stuff they can find, the more they can be in that 47%. That's how they're going to differentiate themselves, because as we know, getting into college is crazy now, crazy competitive. But mom, I got straight A's. So did 150,000 other kids in the country. So it used to be a little easier to differentiate yourself. Now I don't envy the kids. It's a tough situation. So doing these kinds of things, creating that sort of record for yourself. Oh, she raised funds for this important cause. She won this video contest. She promotes a cause, and all those types of things, and showcasing them. You know what the top question of interviewers for kids looking for jobs was this past year? What did you learn during COVID? Right. So they want to know, everyone's locked down. Everyone's home all the time. What did you do at that time? Really important, right? So it's these kinds of things that can really do well for them. Okay, wrapping up here. So we have our Trend Micro Cyber Academy. If you go to trendmicro.com/internet-safety, it's going to be all the resources that I've talked about here tonight, as well as this new thing that we've constructed, which is called Cyber Academy. Bunch of different modules, right? One on passwords, one on two-factor authentication, privacy, security, healthy habits. They all have animated videos. They have a Kahoot quiz. They have an activity sheet, conversation guide. So let us know what you think of that. We have more coming soon. Camera safety, safety settings, kindness, all the other things. So that's a good resource to check out. Really, the most important thing tonight, if you walk away with anything, it's just that you want to. This is the beginning of the conversation, potentially, or the continuation of the conversation with your kids, if it's already started. But stay active in the game. It's so easy to just be overwhelmed now, right? For us too. We're in the industry, but things happen all the time. There's new apps every day. How do you keep up with this stuff? You know what? It's a lot about communicating and maybe pairing up with another parent or a group of parents. If there's a new app that the kids are using, check it out amongst yourselves, see what it's capable of, what it can do. And that way you can stay up to date with what's happening. Don't worry about knowing everything about it. There's no way to know everything. It can be completely overwhelming because technology changes all the time, every day, and there's new apps coming, and there's going to be a new Facebook and whatever many. Kids are already off that and onto another thing, right? But really, do one new thing that you haven't done that maybe you saw tonight that you want to incorporate into your home life. So choose something and do one new thing. Any questions? This is the formal pause for questions. Okay, all the resources like I talked about are here, for teachers, for parents, for the kids. We even cover what's your story in the if the kids are interested in that kind of contest, or if you think your kid has that kind of skill or interest. There's internet safety blogs. There's a ton of stuff there. So trendmicro.com/internet-safety for that. All right. And there's also this for your teachers, teacherlists.com. There's a blog on there. Parents, especially for parents, Family Tech Talk. That's where our sponsorship from this comes from with the PTO. You are welcome, Tanya. I'm glad it was helpful. And again, just a reminder that we do want your feedback. You don't have to worry about this link, because when you exit the Zoom, if I have configured it correctly, you will be automatically directed to that page to give your feedback. It'll ask about the event date and how helpful the information was, and so on and so forth. You can tell them David stunk, and still be entered in the 1 year to get a 1 year subscription for 5 devices of Trend Micro Maximum Security. So make sure you include your email in that form. So on behalf of myself and Lynette Owens, who's our founder and global director of the Trend Micro Internet Safety for Kids and Families, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me tonight and for my bedtime story. And reach out. All of us are first name _ last name at trendmicro.com. So if you ever want to follow up on anything from this, I'm happy to share conversation with you and ideas. I will follow up on that Teams issue, because that's a great one. I hadn't heard that one before, but it's great. You are all welcome. Thank you for all the mahalos. Thank you for the thank yous. And really appreciate you spending time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you hopefully in person next time. I expect the next time that I present for a elementary or middle school in Hawaii that it will require my physical presence. May it be so. Get rid of this Omicron and everything else, and let's all get back together and smile and have a good laugh. Any final questions? I appreciate everyone's comments in the chat. You are very welcome. Lokalani, I will follow up with you on the other resources in the Teams issue. I'm really glad this was helpful for you all. Have a great night. My dog is telling me that it is time for us to go to sleep. So take care, everybody. Really my pleasure. And we'll talk at you soon.